The world won't understand you. Hey, but it's okay. Said the world won't understand you, 'cause I made you in my own way. Said the world won't understand you, 'cause I made you different.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 71 of In a Good Way podcast. Today's special guest is Shawn Leonard, who is a Mi'kmaq Indigenous spirit talker, aka a psychic medium. He is the author of the book Spirit Talker and also has a show on APTN TV that is now on its 4th season, and he is in the process of filming the 5th season. And he is also the creator of the Oracle deck Wisdom of the Elders, which I have my own right here. I love it. It's a great Oracle deck. I can't even say enough. Like, I really, because it's different, right? It's you can't find certain things that you find in this deck amongst other decks. So yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you for creating it.
Well, thank you for having me on your show, and I
Absolutely.
really appreciate it. And hello everyone out there who knows me or doesn't know me, but I'm really appreciative of you mentioning the book, the TV show, and the card deck. It's it's been season 4 is out right now on APTN, and for everybody that is out in the world that want to watch Spirit Talk of the TV show, because it is 4 seasons out now, currently filming season 5. You can use a VPN like NordVPN. Say you're in Canada, go to aptnlumi.ca and watch the show for a week. If you sign up, the first week's for free. So I would say, give it a go. And if it's something you like, then you can always find another email address to sign up for the second week.
Okay.
Hint.
No, thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, I'm absolutely gonna do that. So
I wish people were, had more, was accessible to people in the US and, in other parts of the world. It is playing in Australia, but I wish it could be on a network down there or streaming on there somewhere, maybe one day. I'm still finishing season 5, so I think probably after then it hopefully gets out in the world a little bit, more, and helps people understand, not just me, but because the show is about Indigenous culture a little bit and learning about culture, but it's also about me helping people in communities and understanding how spirit can and does communicate, through me or through other people like me, to allow that healing process to take place for people that have been affected by different things, whether it's grief or regret, remorse, or residential school trauma in relation to their parents that have passed on. There's so many different things that can come through in messages to help people through, to be in a better space of life. And is your podcast called in a good way?
yes.
Right. I love that. Actually, I love that.
Thank you. No, and I was completely guided, like, in that way, right? I was guided in that way. I got like all these signs, and then I ended up on this street, and I looked up and it said Goodway Street, and right away it was like In a Good Way, and then In a Good Way podcast. I was like, okay. Very well.
Let me finds many ways to get us messages. Hey, you're looking for a sign, literally you see a sign.
No, absolutely. And my very first guest was a native medicine woman, my friend. She's a good friend. She's from a tribe, well, 2 tribes out in Texas out there. And so that was originally kind of the direction I wanted to go. That's why when I saw you, to me, you're like a needle in a haystack for me, right? And I'll get into all that after we could talk about it. But just briefly, it was like, I noticed a lot of Native people didn't want to really talk about it, right? Like, they didn't want to talk about all these like spiritual things. I think it's always been part of the culture to keep it more secret just because of everything that has happened in history, right?
Right.
They had like the trauma.
But I mean, we have a word I'm sure there's a word in every Indigenous culture, and this is something I've come to understand maybe greater in some way, is that we have a word in Mi'kmaq, which we say is Emsit Nogama, which means we're all related. We're all family. And I know that, cultural appropriation is important, but I also know sharing spiritual new thoughts, spiritual ideas in a way, even with a flavor of culture, is something that people may need to walk in a good way through life or find a better path through life. And, because they haven't been finding it in different aspects of life, whether it's through religion or through their own culture, what have you. But I mean, I don't teach ceremony, which I think is important to not to do, is not, not give people ceremonies in relation to indigenous culture, because that's again culture appropriation. But
Mm,
what I can do, like the naming of the deck is like wisdom of the elders, I can share wisdom that I've gained from maybe being part of ceremonies. I
mhm,
can share wisdom that I've gained spiritually to help me understand, that greater connection to spirit world itself. And I think that's important, needs to be shared. I mean, you are doing that in your own way, in a good way, and I'm doing it in my own way too. You're sharing ideas, thoughts, beliefs, and helping people move through life in a greater way of life. But and that's you're a healer. You're giving knowledge and you're helping people heal. But that's what motivates me, is like helping people move through life in a good way and be in a better space. And through that connection, that understanding that spirit can and does communicate, and how that all takes place, to help people know that, one, their people are with them, around them, and love them, and two, you actually don't really need me to make the connection. I'm just the one to help you realize that it's possible. And then once you know that it's possible, it shifts your life so that you step into your own spirit. You step into your own path and journey of connection, as opposed to thinking people need me.
mm.
I don't want people to ever think that you can't get through life without having someone like me, a medicine person, or a person who can share that connection, because I try to awaken. I try to help people understand their own divine connection. I think that's a great gift to give people, and help people like remember that you're
Mm.
spirit first, and then you're human second. You were spirit before you stepped into this form, and when you stepped into it, man, it was just a little tiny inkling. Now look at us, right? We
Yeah,
just grow, and then eventually we outgrow our body, and then we have to return back to that spirit form.
absolutely. No, thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, that was beautifully put. So I wanted to, start kind of in the beginning. Like, how were you already experiencing things when you were young, or how did it start, like, I guess, unfolding for you on your path?
Well, I had many. I mean, that's why I wrote the book Spirit Talker, is
Okay.
because there's just so many stories to share, and there's a lot even I didn't share. But when I was young, it unfolded that I started to have spiritual experiences
Mm,
at a very young age. I never, you know, I wouldn't think there was psychic or special or anything like this. It would be just like part of life. You just have a connection to the people that you love. And I remember, if I was to go back to my earliest memories, one, I used to have an invisible friend that would always visit me, named Sam.
oh wow.
And he wore a long white robe all the time and talked to me, told me things, and I'd argue with my mom about what he'd tell me. And my mom, she was very devout Catholic, and I would challenge her in her belief system because of what things Sam would tell me sometimes. And I don't think that was his intention. And then I remember, probably about 4 to 5 years old, he told me, because I remember this moment very clearly. I was downstairs in my mom's basement playing with my little dinky toy cars,
Mm,
and I was beside the washer and dryer, and he said, "Shawn, I want you to know I have to leave you. I'm always going to be with you, but you're not going to be able to see me the way that you see me now." And I'm like, because I mean, you're 4 or 5 years old. I don't understand that. I'm like, well, where are you going? And I'm like, well, I have to go home, but again, I'll be always watching over you and there for you. Like, okay. And a big white light appeared. He walked into it, and it just blinked out, and he was gone.
mm,
And literally, I felt alone, alone. Like I felt I lost my best friend, it felt like a family member to me, like I lost a family member. And I
wow.
cried, I grieved him. I remember going to my mom and saying, "Mom, Sam's gone." And I think probably my mom was probably relieved that I wouldn't argue about what Sam was telling me all the time anymore.
Wow.
And I mean, you can call that an ancestor, you can call that a spiritual guide, your guardian angel. There's so many different words and different cultures for different things, but I mean, they're not different things. They're the same things. We just, in the difference of cultures, there's similarities, and we just have different definitions of describing those things, right?
Wow.
Maybe in Catholicism, it would be in a guardian angel, and in indigenous culture, it was an ancestor from a long time ago that was like watching over you or helping guide you, right? Or even kind of new age stuff, it could be like spiritual guides, right?
Mm,
But it's all the same thing. It's just different ways of looking at it and understanding it, but there's a lot of similarities too. But it kind of unfolded further. And the next spiritual experience I remember being young was my great grandparents passing away.
Oh.
And after they passed away, I started to have visitations with them.
Mm.
And I was in my room, and I was very aware that there was like spirit people in my room. And it kind of startled me a little bit because they were just shadows of people, but I could hear them talking to each other. And I'd always pretend I was asleep because I was a little scared, to let these spirit people, even though I knew that they were my great grandparents, know that I could hear them. And so I'd always pretend I was asleep. And I tell my mom about it. My mom says, well, they just love you, they're just watching over you, they're just visiting. I mean, that's amazing, but it still scares the bejeebus out of me.
Yeah.
So I made my mom get a bunch of night lights, and it seemed to kind of tame down with the night lights.
Oh, wow.
Right. So I don't know why that is. It was like I couldn't see the shadows. I couldn't really, and maybe I just slept more soundly with the lights on. And then I remember one night particularly, I woke up, it was probably 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. All my night lights were off, and I was like, okay, what the hell? And then I saw the shadows in my room again, which again was my great grandparents talking again, pretending I'm asleep, had my sheets up over my eyes. And then I could hear them moving in the room. And then somebody ran their fingers through my hair,
Oh, wow.
just kind of like in an endearing way. And then I pulled down my sheets and I was like, please be my mom, please be my mom. My mom was not there. I literally jumped off my bed because I didn't know they could actually touch me. Like I didn't know that could
Oh,
happen.
wow. Yeah.
Like I just knew I could hear them talking and rustling around and see shadows moving here and there. And so I did a backflip off my bed. I'm pretty sure my feet did not touch the floor. I was in my mom's room, and I was just like, I don't care how much the lemon, they have to go. So she brought me in the room, and I had a conversation just saying, Dan, Pop, I love you, but you're scaring me, and it's making me very uncomfortable. Could you please not visit me this way anymore?
Wow.
And that was literally the last time I seen them that way. I've never seen them that way again. And I think maybe all I needed to do was just talk to them and tell them what I was comfortable with and not comfortable with. Maybe they didn't know how scared I was. And I think they just love me. I mean, these are your great grandparents. They love you. They're watching over you. They're visiting when they can. And I mean, even the running the fingers through the hair, I feel was like almost an endearing thing to say, we're going to go. Now that I think about it, it was like, they were almost like leaving me. And it was just the timing of everything. Maybe they realized that they weren't able to visit me the way that they were, like my ancestor, my spirit guide, my guardian angel, right? That they too had to kind of move away from me. And I went about my marital life as a young boy and had like some pretty profound spiritual experiences. Like I remember with my other Mi'kmaq friends, like that would come from school, I'd go outside and tell them I could talk to the wind. I stood up on the hill and I'd say, oh, great spirit, please allow the wind to blow. And it would freaking blow. And then I'd say, stop. And then it would stop. And they're like, you're freaking us out.
Wow.
I know it was probably just timing.
No, I believe that. So,
But, I was a little different that way. Like I realized I was connected and and another profound experience that I had very young, because I lived on a hill in Canada, like in very remote town of Nova Scotia, Canada, which is a small, not a large province, on the northeastern part of Canada. And so in the summer, I have all these friends, and we all drove our bikes, like just everywhere you had to drive a bike. I mean, back in the day, it was like a mile and a half to the store, so you had to have a bike to get there. And so anyway, one of the things we used to do was sillily, it was like we'd actually set up jumps and ramps, and we were kids back in the day. I mean, I'm 51 now, but when I was a kid, I mean, you did reckless things. I'm so lucky. I can't believe I survived this, my childhood. And we'd do ramps and jumps, and we'd actually jump people too. We'd
wow.
lay people down on the road, and we hit the ramp and jump over them, whatever. We didn't always make it.
Oh.
But this one time, I remember driving down the hill to jump over some friends on our bike. And for what the board that we chose was like a piece of plywood, but is really flimsy.
Oh, wow.
So when I hit the ramp, it bowed in, and then the rocks that we had all piled up on the ramp, I hit the rocks and I was flying through the air. And, I'm on a gravel road. This is not going to be fun.
Mm.
And I remember somebody grabbing me in the air and putting me right on my feet.
Wow.
And they're like, "Oh my God, how did you do that? It was so cool. You're like flying through the air, and then it was just like you came straight down on your feet." I'm
Wow.
like, I said, "Somebody grabbed me and picked me up from the air," and they're like, "There was nobody there." I'm like, "No, there had to be somebody there."
Yeah, yeah.
And but I felt somebody's hands actually grip me and grab me as I was flying through the air and place me on my feet. Maybe, and I think about this, maybe it was an exit point. Who knows? That maybe I could have been injured in such a way that would have profoundly affected my life purpose in life, or
Mm.
maybe I could have been paralyzed, and I wouldn't be who I am today if things had unfolded in a specific way. So I feel like there was kind of an intervention of sorts that that I would have been hurt in a way that it would have changed my whole life. And I do feel like we all have a life purpose and a plan, right?
Mm.
And that who we're becoming, who we're meant to be, is unfolding. And and some people have very detailed plans, and I feel like mine's detailed enough to think that, I mean, here I am talking to you today. Obviously I've had to accomplish and do a lot to be in this space to speak to you today.
Mm.
And I think that plan always has existed, not just for me, but for everyone. And I mean, when we step into your potential, you step into, this person that you're meant to kind of evolve and co-create, I guess, based on your life purpose and plan, that then things, everything aligns, just like what you were saying about how you've been moving into your own spiritual journey through life, and doing what you are, and looking for guidance from a sign, and everything just fell into place. Now you're doing a podcast and serving people, and it's obviously something that moves you through life. It might not be move you through life forever, but for right now, it's where you're supposed to be. And maybe there'll be something beyond this that you move into, whether you're an author or doing other things and public speaking, who knows. Those are potentials for you in life if you choose it. And but I mean, we all have a journey, right? And when you're on your life purpose, the right people, the right circumstances, the right situations show up for you. And I feel like my life has been like that so weirdly, that there's no way you could look at life and think it's just random. It's
Absolutely.
just impossible.
So were you ever shown, because like I've interviewed people with NDEs, the near-death experience, and they've shared those stories about how they were shown like it was already all kind of written, basically, right?
Well, I'll tell you one other story. When I was younger, when I started to grow up a little bit further, and it involved the passing of my father.
Mm.
Father James, who was Métis, because in Canada we have what you call, we have First Nations people, like Indigenous, because my mom's side is Mi'kmaq,
Okay.
and my dad's side are Métis people. So there's a mix between French and Indigenous culture, and they have their own different calling, which is called Métis people. And anyway, my dad was a Métis person from Alberta, and came to Nova Scotia, met my mom, who was from Newfoundland. And anyway, they had two children, which was myself and such. And my dad was in the Navy, gone all the time. I hardly seen him because he was in the Canadian Armed Forces, and he was a chief engineer on the ship and such. So he was out with on NATO missions and different things all the time. He'd be home for like 3 months and be gone again, or be home for 6 months and be gone for another 6 months, which is the name of the job, pretty much, right? And around at 15 years old, my father unfortunately passed away. It was October 16th, 1987. He had a massive heart attack out in the driveway.
Wow.
At 42 years old.
Oh, wow.
So young. I mean, I'm 51, and I'm thinking, my God, I still feel young. Well, my body says I'm not, but I still feel like I am in my spirit anyway. But my dad died at 42. And I remember that day very clearly. My mom had come to wake me up very early in the morning and said, "Shawn, wake up. There's something wrong with your dad. He's out in the driveway. You have to go help him. I'm going to call 911. It's like 5 o'clock in the morning. It was October 16th. It was dark. And you could see your breath because it was colder back in that day, especially in Canada. And I remember running out. My dad just bought this truck, like a secondhand Ford truck, and he was so happy to have it. Door was open, truck was running. And anyway, I walk around the whole truck, look inside the truck, couldn't see my father.
Oh.
I'm like, where the heck is my phone? My dad. So I go back inside. I talked to mom. I said, Mom, I said, Dad's not out there. She goes, go out, look again. So I go out and look again. She's still calling people. And, I'm like kind of frantic a bit because, is my mom imagining this? I mean, what's going on? So I walk around the truck again, still no father. And I'm like, so I said, Mom, he's not out there. And she physically grabbed me and brought me out to the truck. And my dad was laying the whole time in front of the door, and he wasn't there when I was there. It was so surreal. It was like I couldn't see him. It was like he was invisible to me. And I still to this day, I understand it a bit. Like maybe I wasn't meant to save him. And there was a purpose for his purpose was fulfilled, and he was meant to go home. And so anyway, I tried to resuscitate my dad, and I wasn't able to do it. And after about 10 or 15 minutes, I knew in my heart that my dad wasn't coming back. I prayed to the Creator. I yelled at my dad. I cursed at my father. I was like, I could feel him there.
Yeah.
I was telling him to get back in his body, and he just wouldn't do it. Now, a year after this, and I was 16, and I don't know the exact date, but I remember it was about a year after, I was sleeping on my mom's couch in the basement. And I remember waking up on the couch in the basement about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, around that time. And when I woke up, I saw this light at the end of the rec room. And I got up off the couch. Now, when I got up off the couch, I used to have these experiences when I was young. I could leave my body.
Oh, okay.
I could literally leave my body when I was young. I could get up and fly around the neighborhood, and it was like I could do it at will. But as I got older, I wasn't able to do it anymore. And so this was like one of these experiences, but now I'm 16 and I haven't had an experience like this in forever. And I could see myself sleeping on the couch, but yet I was standing here, staring at this light that was just the size of a fist. Now, this light grew larger and larger and larger, and it was so bright. It was so bright. It was like the brightest, whitest light I've ever seen in my whole life. I can't even, it's almost undescribable. And it grew about to the size of a person. And then out of this light walked my father. And my dad stepped out of the light. I was like, oh my God, Dad, you're alive. And he said, and I was really happy to see him. And, my dad was wearing a long white robe. And I thought, what? And that's the next thought I had, is like, what the hell are you wearing, Dad? Like, why would you be wearing this long white robe? My dad was a hunter, fisher in the Navy. He drank, he smoked, cursed here and there. I remember seeing him in the bathtub. Like, my mom would make him sleep there because he came home and had a few too many beers. And, like, my dad would never be caught dead wearing this. And it was like, caught me by surprise. And so anyway, I got angry too, because I was mad that my dad had died. He'd left. And I realized that at this point that this is a visitation and this wasn't his physical body. And then I didn't even say anything. He just said, Shawn, you need to calm down. I'm like, okay. Because I come to you with a few messages and you need to remember these. You need to tell your mom that I'm okay. Please tell her, and remember that you tell her that I'm okay. And I'm like, I'll do this. I'll tell her that you had visited me and that I saw that you're okay. And you need to tell your brother that I'm okay too and that I love him. I'm like, I will do this. And now, even though my dad was talking, I saw this light behind him. And all I can just to help you understand what it seemed like when I saw this light, that it felt like home. It felt like, this is home. Oh my God, I'm living in, this is before the Matrix came out. I'm in some type of freaking Matrix.
Yeah.
This is not real. That is real. And that's where we come from. And that's where we exist. This place that we're in is not real. This is just, we're playing parts. And I knew at that point, it was like, almost like I remembered as I saw the light, that I was here to play some role, fulfill some, purpose that I didn't really care about anymore. All I cared about was going home. And I tried to walk past my dad to move into the light, and he got in my way and he says, no, you're not coming.
Oh, wow.
You're not coming in here. I said, well, why can't I go? I'll just check it out for a few minutes. And I knew that if I could just get into the light, There was no way I was coming back because I knew that was home. I was like, I'm going home.
Yeah.
And he knew I was lying because he says, I know you're going there, you're not going to want to come back. I'm like, no, I will. But he knew. And he says, Shawn, I have a few other things to tell you. He says, it's important that you remember this light. He says, one day you're going to be helping people understand where we are, where we come from, and the reasons why we're here.
Mm.
And I said, okay. And he said, yes. And he says, you're going to be helping people move through different things in life. And it's okay. I mean, how am I supposed to be doing this? He goes, Shawn, you really don't have to do anything. It's just going to happen. You just have to trust when it happens.
Mm.
Okay, this is ridiculous. My dad's telling me about something that I'm supposed to do. And I think this, I literally, the only thing I thought about back at, 16 years old was guitars and girls. I wasn't thinking about doing anything else. And here is my dad telling me something that there's like some other purpose that I'm supposed to be doing that I had no idea of what the hell that means. And I kept trying to walk past him. And he says, you can't go. He says, the greatest gift of love I could ever have given you was to leave your life. And I want you to remember this. He says, because the unfoldment and the being and the person you're meant to be, you've had to experience loss. And we have chosen before I had come here that I would leave your life to help you remember this.
Mm.
He says, I'm always going to be with you, but you can't come here now. You're going to be helping people. You need to remember that. And then he touched me on my forehead and I woke up on the couch. And it was just like, I got up, I told my mom, I'm like, well, God, Mom, you're not going to guess who visited me. It was Dad last night. And I thought my mom would be really happy that Dad had visited me, but my mom was still very heavy in her grief.
Mm.
And she was mad because my dad come to me and not her.
Oh, wow.
She says, why didn't he come to me? Why isn't he coming to me? Why isn't he visiting me? My mom was having such a hard time.
Mm.
Without my father, she was struggling so much that she couldn't understand why he was coming to me. And obviously there was a reason why he came to me. And it was like chosen before. I mean, there was a plan. Even his death was part of my life. It was meant to be part of my life. And with loss, I mean, many people are affected by loss and maybe can't understand why they would lose a child or their spouse or their parent. But we all have different things we're learning, experiencing, and going through. And death is not the end of life. It's just that because we've been so physically conditioned within this physical world that we think that when we lose somebody, death is like this horrible thing. And I've come to this realization, through life, and I was just recently faced with a scare with my mom with cancer.
Oh, wow.
That doesn't mean I wouldn't miss her and mourn my mom, but I know she's going to be okay. My grandmom passed away probably about 7 years ago. And, who is Mi'kmaq? She was my Mi'kmaq grandmom who I spent a lot of time with, who, I loved immensely. I never went to a funeral. I never cried for my grandmom.
Oh, wow.
Because I know that she's she's at home. And I know that she can come visit. I know she's still connected to me and watches over me. I don't have this disconnection feeling from the people that have moved into the, the light or the spirit world. Mm. And recently, because of my mom's cancer diagnosis, actually, I knew something was coming before my mom even told me. Because I had a visit from my grandmom probably about 6 months ago, because this all happened in the last 6 months. But my grandma, I was in this house and I was looking out the windows and I saw my grandma walk by. She was wearing this red sweater that she loves so much. She wore it all the time. And I remember it fell apart that she wore it so much. But in my dream, it was like her red sweater was like pristine. It was glowing. It was just like a brand new red sweater. And here she, and I saw her walk up to the door and I was going to go answer it. And I saw her with like a big folder in her hand. Like there was a big file folder, and she was and I knew she was bringing me news.
Mm.
And she was going to show me something was like planned here. And in a week, my mom calls and said, from Newfoundland, because she was in Newfoundland at the time, she goes, I just got a call back from the doctor for my breast exam. I have to go back for another test.
Mm.
So she came home, went for a test, and I told her about the dream. And I said, I knew, but when I saw my grandmom, I knew that my mom was going to be okay.
Mm.
My mom was like terrified. She went back for a breast exam. They did a biopsy, and it turns out she had cancer in her breast. So very shortly after, and this just happened a month ago, but they had removed my mom's breast, and there was a, I think it was a 12 millimeter cancer tumor that was in her breast, but they did instead of doing a lumpectomy, they did a whole breast removal, and they had to test the lymph nodes to make sure that the cancer didn't get out and go into any other part of her lymph nodes, because it would be bad if some of those cells got out. And so anyway, she did the test and nothing. She's in the clear right now. There's still a treatment process, I think, that she's going to on January 9th or 8th to find out what she needs to do next. And it could involve some radiation. It could involve, she's going to be on some type of estrogen blocking pills for 5 years or something. But as far as what the doctor is concerned, she's cancer free and she'll be fine.
Oh, wow.
And
That's great.
it's the dream with my grandmom, right? So it's been a long time since I've seen my grandmom, but I know that she was bringing me news before it all went down. And when I saw her through the window, I could feel in my heart that it was going to be good news. And so when I was a little bit surprised about the diagnosis, but I knew that, my grandma was saying, at the end of this, there's going to be good news. So that's what I took it as.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. I mean, I have similar stories, but I won't talk about that yet. But there was something else I was gonna ask you right now as you were talking. So after that, we kind of that's more recent, right? But at what point did you start helping people? At what point did you start saying, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do, and then started like, hey, I got the message, or
right. Well, despite what my dad said, I never gave it too much energy. I was still guitars, girls, and getting a job. That's pretty much all it was all about. I mean, it was 16.
Yeah.
I went and lived with my grandmom for a little while in Newfoundland, did some fishing, thought I was going to be a fisherman for a minute.
Oh,
and
wow.
then old girlfriend calls in some other province, goes, Shawn, I'm so sorry we broke up. Can you come visit me? So the whole idea of the fisherman went out the window in that second. And I was on a plane, got home, and then she calls back, goes, Shawn, I've changed my mind.
What?
Yeah, but it altered my life.
Yeah.
It was a moment that altered my life. See, sometimes we think things are bad, but they're not.
Yeah.
When things are falling apart, they're actually falling into place. We just have this idea that this is terrible, but really it's really good. Because then I decided to move out to Calgary, Alberta, where my mom's sisters had lived. And I called one of my uncles, he had a job for me, and I moved out there, and within like 3 or 4 days I was working, had a full-time job. I met somebody, I got married, had a couple beautiful girls.
Wow.
Again, not thinking about anything in relation to what my dad said at all. Like there was no plans for me consciously that I was going to do something in regards like this. And it all started before my children were born, but my ex-wife now, she used to work at a restaurant in Canada called Montana's. And I used to visit her at Montana's and pick her up from work and such. In my book, it's a little bit different because I talk about a friend that I used to visit at a coffee shop, but I had to change some things.
Oh,
I couldn't put those two together. But anyway, I would go to her work and I would tune into, I won't say who, but there was people there. And for whatever reason, I was very intuitive about people. And I just found I was a little bit more intuitive than most people. I was pretty connected as a young boy, and I never gave it too much energy. And I just, I went to her work, and I kind of did this like for fun in a sense, not to do harm or even for any reason to help people. It was just more of like, and I'm not judging anyone because everybody has their own dream. But I look at that person, I go, well, he's definitely a drug dealer. And I look at that person, I go, well, I have a feeling that you can't trust that guy. He's probably stealing money. And this guy, that couple, I just saw them glance each other for a second. I'm sure they're having an affair. So I would just say things like this, and I'd tell my wife after on the way home, I'm like, what do you think about these people? And she said, well, I think you're crazy because I know these people. This guy's father's a minister. He's never going to steal money, and blah blah blah. And I'm like, well, I can be wrong. I mean, it's just a wacky, weird, kind of thing that I was doing. And then within a week, the guy got busted for dealing drugs. The guy got caught stealing money, and the couple she said were married to other people and were happily married to their spouses were caught kissing in the kitchen.
Wow.
And then she comes home and she goes, how the hell did you know that? I'm like, I worked with these people for years. How do you know this? I'm like, I don't know. I didn't really know. It was just like a hunch, it was just like, lucky guess. Like I never gave it too much thought. It was just like thoughts that I had when I met specific people. And then I remember the moment where she said, it was funny because she started telling some of the ladies that she worked with. And she said, I have this one lady at work that really wants to meet you.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, why? She goes, well, you remember what you were tuning into these people? She says, maybe you're psychic and you don't know. I'm like, what do you mean I'm psychic? I'm not freaking psychic. She goes, well, she just wants to come over. She's coming over on Sunday for dinner. I mean, you're going to sit with her for a few minutes. Like, how the hell did I get signed up for this? Like, there was no plan. And anyway, she comes over. Her name was Jen Sign, very nice lady. And so she comes over and, we have dinner and we sit after dinner and my wife's with us and we're just having a little conversation. She goes, so what do you see for me? Like, what do you pick up? I'm like, I don't know, Jen. And she goes, I've come here to connect to a few people. And I'm like, what do you mean connect to a few people? She goes, yeah, I was hoping that you could like see if you could connect to people in the spirit world. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I can't do that. And she goes,
how old were you at the time? How old were you, if you don't mind?
I was probably 24.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow.
24, maybe 25. But I was like, I can't do this. And she says, no, I think you can. You just probably don't know you can.
Wow.
So I said, well, and then I started kind of like vibing her out like I was doing people at work. And I didn't know what I was doing. I had no clue what I was doing. I was just like, okay, well, I'm just going to give this a go. And so I said, well, for whatever reason, and I thought I was making this all up. I was like, are you like thinking about traveling around the world for some reason? Because I'm singing with some guy named Dale. I just made up the name. And she goes, I just met Dale. I'm like, what? She goes, yeah, I just met Dale. I really like Dale. And he says,
wow.
yeah, we've been talking about possibly, because he said he has this idea about looking after people's homes in different countries and pets, because we're a big pet people. And he says we could do this in different places and we're thinking about doing it. I'm like, well, maybe it's going to work out with Dale. I don't know. And they did do it. Wow. And I said, have you thought about writing a book? She goes, I'm working on a book right now. And I'm like, this is getting crazy. She goes, and she actually published a book. It was about serving people at a restaurant. And it's called the masses are asses.
Oh, wow.
And it's about serving people at restaurants.
Wow.
And so anyway, kind of funny book. And then she goes, okay, now she says, you're on a roll here. She says, like, who can you feel around me? And I'm like, I don't feel anybody. And then I said, but and for whatever reason, I start to feeling like, in my mind, I'm seeing this little old lady who looks like a grandmom to me. And I'm like, well, I feel like probably your grandmom's around you. She's passed away. That's not the person I want to talk to. Like,
oh, wow.
I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And she goes, just keep trying. I'm like, so I sit there and I focus. And I was staring at the floor. And then I had this image pop into my head. And I was like, that is so weird. Why do I always see this? She goes, what are you seeing? Like, I'm seeing this young man who looks like about 15, 16 years old. He's wearing a baseball uniform. And he has a baseball number on. He's standing outside of his shed and he just walked into it. And she cried.
Oh.
I'm like, you're going to have to tell me what does this mean something to you? That's the person I was hoping you would talk to. I said, what do you mean? She goes, I had my friend growing up in high school. We played baseball together. And one night after a baseball game, he went home and he hung himself in the shed. And I've always wanted to know if he's okay. And I'm like, I said, do you see anything else? Do you feel anything? Is he okay? And I'm like, I mean, Jenna, to be honest, I don't really know. I mean, I know what I'm seeing. I feel he's okay. I mean, because I knew this was a very sensitive thing, and she says, "Oh my God, you don't know how much this means to me." And I didn't even realize what I had done. Like it would happen so fast. Like it was like a picture just dropped down in my brain, and I saw this young man, and I described what I saw, and I didn't know what it meant. I had no clue. But to her, it meant a lot. And then after that, she went to her workplace and she told everyone. And I'm getting calls from waitresses everywhere.
Wow.
Like, next thing you know, I'm seeing people, like 2 or 3 people a week. And I'm like, what the hell? And I didn't know what I was doing. But you know what? I was learning. And I was still even skeptical, to be honest. Like, because I thought at the beginning, like, is it possible I'm a mind reader? Am I reading people's minds? Like, is somehow it's in their head and I'm picking it up? I was being analytical. I was like, okay, is there a real reason for this? Like, is it not, maybe not spirit people, but maybe this is just they're thinking about a particular person and situation, and somehow I'm able to like vibe it out.
Yeah. Wow.
Like people, you know what I mean? And there was one moment that changed that whole thought forever. And that's when I knew what was going on. It was like, I was at work, and at that time I was working at a company called Hayworth. It's an office furniture company in Calgary, Alberta. It's gone now. They packed up. They're from Michigan originally, and they make office furniture, and that's where I was working at the time. And I sat beside a guy named Orhan, who's like an amazing good guy. We played sports together. He was very active when I was younger, you know, playing soccer and hockey, or not soccer, hockey, but soccer and basketball with this guy. He's a good guy. Muslim fellow. So his belief system was like not even in alignment with whatever I was thinking. You know, even though I was raised as a Christian, it was, even that wasn't really speaking to me in some ways. And so anyway, I was sitting beside Orhan, and I was typing away at my computer, just like in my own little zone, my own little world. And something happened in that day, in my mid-20s, like I started to hear a voice in my mind. And the voice just said, Charlie, Charlie, Charlie. I'm like, the hell is going on with me? Why am I hearing Charlie? Why does Charlie keep ringing through my mind? Why do I keep hearing this? This is so strange that I'm hearing this guy named Charlie. So I looked at Orion, and I thought, no, I'm not going to say anything because this is going to weird him out. So I went back to typing Charlie. Oh my God. Okay. I'm going to find out. Maybe, and you know what? I'm analyzing this too. I'm thinking, maybe he's got a buddy named Charlie and they're doing something on the weekend, and I'm just vibing out what he's thinking about him and Charlie are doing. Right? Because I'm, again, analytical thinking, like, there's got to be a logical explanation for this. And then I said, Orion, I got a really weird question for you. And I know this is probably out of your comfort zone, but do you know a guy named Charlie? And he stopped. He goes, why do you ask me that? I don't know. I have this name coming through my brain over and over and over again, and it's kind of driving me crazy. And I'm thinking you must be thinking about a guy, because I'm not thinking about a guy named Charlie. He said, but strange you mentioned that. I used to know a guy named Charlie, but he's deceased now.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, he says his name is actually Achari, but his nickname was Charlie, and everybody called him Charlie. And then as soon as he said this, it was like a picture appeared in my brain, just like the man in the shed with the baseball uniform. Now I'm seeing this picture, and it's a bar sign in Calgary, Alberta. And it's a big T and C, the Town and Country.
Oh.
And it goes, blink, Town and Country Bar. I'm like, oh, that's so weird. Why would I see the Town and Country Bar sign? He goes, what did you say? I said, I just saw the Town and Country Bar sign. He goes, that's the last place Charlie was seen alive.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, what? And then you don't have to be psychic to figure out if you're last seen somewhere, something happened to you. And then I start seeing this house, and I saw the backside of the house, and there was stairs going into the basement, and I saw 3 shadows behind him, and he was walking into the basement. I felt impact to my head. And I was like, was he murdered? And he goes, yes. And then he got mad. He goes, who told you this? I said, Orion, nobody's telling me this. Like, it's just coming to me. So there's no way this is coming to you. There's just no way. I said, okay, well, tell me about Charlie first. I'm like, who here have you talked to about Charlie? He goes, I haven't talked about Charlie in years. I said, well, how do you think I freaking know? He goes, how do you know him? He says, I worked with him at the airport 8 years ago.
Wow.
I'm like, Orion, I didn't even know you worked at the airport 8 years ago. How am I supposed to know you knew a guy named Charlie his real name is Achari, but you nicknamed him Charlie? How am I supposed to put all that together? Think about this. How do you think this is like? How am I supposed to put these bets? He says, I don't know. He says, but this isn't nice. And I said, listen, let's just drop it. I said, I need you to just tell me one thing. Do you know anything about that house and going in the basement, the backside, and going downstairs into an apartment like that? And he says, no. He says, what are you trying to say? Like I murdered him or something? I was in Bosnia when he was deceased. And I said, I'm not suggesting that. I just need to know, did you know this? And he says, no, I don't know anything about it. All I heard was that he was murdered. He was last at the Town and Country Bar, and that's all I know. He says, and he says, we got to drop this. He says, I said, fine. I'm so sorry, Charlie. I'm so sorry, Orion. I didn't mean to offend you. This is not where I thought I was going. Trust me. I thought you were going to tell me you were going dirt biking with Charlie on the weekend. That's what I thought before this all started. And anyway, it was a month later that I came into work, and I'd often picked up the paper in Calgary because I mean, in Canada, hockey's a big sport, right? So I'd always check the hockey scores.
Yeah.
So I was flipping through looking for hockey scores, and there happened to be an unsolved murder story in the paper about a guy named Achari, nicknamed Charlie, worked at the airport and talked about that he was last seen at the Town and Country Bar. And then they showed a picture of the house and talked about the house where he was found murdered. And he was found murdered in the downstairs basement apartment of this place. And they, there was a roof and they were going downstairs and, they didn't say how he died. And then I read that. I'm like, oh my God, this is absolutely the guy. So Orion comes in, I put the paper down in front of him and I say, Orion, you really need to read this. And he reads it and he says, what do you want me to say? I thought we talked about this already. I said, remember the part that I said, did you know this? About the house and the basement and the stairs going to the outside entrance to the apartment area. He says, I don't remember. I said, baloney. I said something else, but we'll say baloney for now. And he says, I do remember you telling me. And you didn't know this. He said, I swear, Shawn, I did not know that part. He says, what are you trying to say? I said I was in another country when this happened. I said, I'm not saying this. I just need to know, did you know this? And he said, I did not know this. I said, well, you got to swear on somebody's life, like your kids or your wife's life. I need to know that you're telling the truth. He says, I'll swear on my wife's life, but I can't swear on my kid's life in case I knew and I didn't remember, but I'll swear on her life, he said. And he says, I swear. He says, are you going to stop grilling me with this? I'm like, I'm not grilling you. He says, why is this so important to you? And I said, Orion, I said, for some time, I've been getting information from people that I believe is spirit people. And I've been a little bit skeptical, let's say, of how it's been coming to me. And I wasn't sure for the longest time if I was like a mind reader. But if you didn't know something and it came to me, it's coming from somewhere. And you know, Orion, I'm going to tell you the truth. It really feels like a person is telling me a story. And it's like little pieces of the story they give me. It's almost like they don't tell you the whole thing. It's like, first it starts with the name and then you validate. Then they give you a piece about the bar sign, you validate. Oh, there's a house, you validate. It's like they're telling you the story, but a little piece at a time. And in that moment, when after Orion, dropped it or whatever, I knew without doubt that spirits were communicating to me. And I thought about what my dad said then. I was like, holy crap. I remember what my dad said. He said, I'd be tuning in and connecting to people in spirit and helping people. I'm like, this is obviously, and he said, I didn't have to do anything, it was just going to happen. And, but I had to trust. That was the first step, is I had to trust what was coming through. And that, even though I was like meeting people, I still was skeptical. But after that, I was no longer skeptical. It shifted my life. It was a moment that shifted me in such a profound way. It was like all of a sudden in that moment, I clearly understood a language of communication from spirit. and how, and I never understood what clairvoyance was, clairsentience, clairaudience, claircognizance, how these, I'll call it the mechanics of communication from spirit, works through a person like myself.
Wow.
Or other people. But it was like in that moment, I understood how this all works.
Wow.
And it was because, and I even realized that it was because I was hyper-focused.
Oh.
I even realized that I had to kind of create space in my mind for it to allow it to happen. Because like I was almost in a meditative state typing on my computer. When I met with Jen, I was like really hyper-focused, staring at the floor, looking to see if something would come to me, and it did. But I had to almost create space in my mind to allow it to come. Because I feel like we're all so busy, right? We're so busy with life, thinking about this, that, whatever. There's not a lot of room unless you like sit and just kind of like allow, and you create space. And so I created space. I learned to create space, and I started to practice at working and developing even my inner sight. And I even created exercises for myself so that I could even see better within my mind. I would then take objects, right? Like this moonstone, right? A heart. And I would sit it down, I'd stare at it for a long time, and then I would stare away and at a blank space on the table, I would hold the image as clear as I could, and I would even move around the image and feel it, and just, kind of sense the image in my mind through inner visual sight. And I developed my inner sight to a greater degree. And it was like I was working a long atrophied muscle.
Wow.
But we all have it within us. It's all there. I mean, and I'll tell you why, because no matter any person that's watching this podcast, even yourself, as I describe this whole story to you, you have seen it in your mind. You are able to see it within your mind and imagine or visualize it. And I like to say it's not imagination, it's imagination. So it's an image that you've chosen to allow to create within your mind. So it's imagination that, with spirit, through clairvoyance, and that's predominantly like a little bit of clairaudience, which is like hearing something that I didn't know is just because you're a psychic medium. I mean, I think there's this fallacy with people thinking that you're a psychic medium, you just know everything. Like, I mean, even after that, Orion gave me a hard time wanting to know what the freaking lottery numbers were every other day, but or what sport teams I should pick on the pro line or whatever. It's sports betting and stuff. But it became a little bit of a joke with Orion. But you don't know everything. You don't. And spirit's not going to tell you things that are going to alter your financial life. They're not going to say, well, let's give this guy the lottery numbers, he deserves to win. Unless you're meant to win, it's part of your life purpose. Yeah, then that's what's meant to unfold. But if you have a different purpose that being enriched in life is going to shift or change that's not coming for you, unfortunately. I'm so sorry. But
yeah.
Right. I mean, I'm telling you, if I could win the lottery, I'd probably be in Hawaii right now on the beach, not doing podcasts, not helping or serving people. I would be living the best life I could in the sand. And but spirit doesn't have a plan for that for me. I wouldn't fulfill what I'm meant to be here for. That and it's there's other things that have to motivate you, things that move you through life, and that's what this is for me. And I mean, I have an online course called Spirit Talker Tribe, where I help teach people about developing their intuition and psychic abilities, because I feel it's innate within all of us to different degrees and levels. And it's just learning how to kind of, and that's why I've developed these exercises for myself, even creating space with meditation, with stillness for very short periods of time of focus, because a lot of people think that, that your busy mind can just get stuff, and that's not true. You have to learn to create space to receive. Prayer, or whatever you want to call it, speaking or words with spirit or the creator, is just interacting, telling him what you need or what you need help with. And when I make a connection to spirit, I usually light some smudge because I'm an Indigenous person. That's part of my culture, right? But I light the smoke, and I lift that smoke up around myself to cleanse my aura, myself, and I give some of that smudge smoke to spirit, and I speak within the smoke, and that carries my words, into the energy of that it surrounds me, and into the spirit world, because spirit is all around us. There's no separation. And I say, I invite you to connect and communicate to me. I'm open and available for this, to all people that are moved on within the light itself. For the people that I'm about to speak to, I'm available for this communication that will come through, so that we can help guide them and move them through life in a good way, to help them move through life in a healing way, to help them move through in a peaceful way. If there's any messages of love, light, and validation that needs to come through for that person, I'm available for that, through clairvoyance, clairsentience, clairaudience, infusion. May we work together to helping this person, move through life in a better way. And so that's what I do on the show. I mean, a lot of people don't see that on the show. They just see me doing sessions and such. But there's a whole process that that I do before I even start the session. I smudge and invite, and then when the people are sitting in front of me, just like what you're doing, to receive something, knowledge, because in order to receive knowledge, you have to listen. So to receive messages from spirit, you have to listen, not just with your ears, but with your mind, your spirit, your heart, your whole energy being. You have to listen, because they can communicate in so many ways. And I think that we think that psychic abilities is all clairvoyance, or it's just hearing things, or there's an aspect of feeling and sensing spirit too that is so in depth in relation to how they communicate, because they'll connect to me, and let's just say that they had died of a heart issue. My heart would skip a beat and I'd feel pain in my heart. Not that they carry that in the spirit world, but that was part of their journey, so they may tell me about it, or they may tell me about something that's going on with you, for instance. And I've had a couple ladies that come see me many years ago, and this happens all the time, by the way, but they have different moms, right? In spirit world, I'm connecting to the lady on my right, I'm speaking to her mom, but every time I talk to her, or she communicates to me, I have pain in my right ovary that I don't have. Right. So I start getting a pain where an ovary would be. So I know what it would feel like to have an ovary in a spot that I don't have, because I'm absolutely a man. I have no ovaries. But I knew there was a problem with the ovary. And I thought, and this is where mediums or psychics don't know everything, but we're getting information, and there's a reason why we're getting it. And I thought her mom was telling me, hey, I died of ovarian cancer, and that's what caused me to pass. So I told the lady, I'm like, I'm assuming your mom must have died of cancer, and I feel like it's probably ovarian cancer. And she says, no, my mom did die of ovarian cancer, but she didn't die of ovarian cancer. Like, are you sure? Oh, and then my right ovary started to hurt again. I'm like, well, she really is putting a lot of pressure on the right ovary. I laughed about it, joked about it. And she goes, well, I'm actually having ovarian surgery in a month, and they're taking out my right ovary. And there's cysts on it, and they think it's cancerous, so they're going to remove it as a precaution. So here I'm talking to this lady's mom. Why would she tell me this? To scare her? No. Because, I mean, this is this lady's mom. She loves her. She's with her through this process. She knows that her daughter has fear in relation to what's to come. Considering that her mom also died of cancer, she has this fear of dying cancer herself. She has children, and she wants to be in the world for them. So why would spirit give me that message in that way for her? Well, one, to remove the fear, because that's what I'm in alignment with working with, is not to scare people just to be right. I'm only, and I'm very clear with spirit saying, listen, if you're going to tell me things that help people. Tell me things that are going to help them move through life in a better way, right? And so I knew that mom was telling me this because she had fear, and I had to help her with the fear.
Oh, wow.
You need to surrender your fear, and your mom's going to be with you. And then I felt the over removed. I was like, oh, okay, I just felt it taken out. And I said, you're going to be fine. You're going to be absolutely fine. And your mom's going to be with you the whole time. So talk to her, think about her when you're going through this whole thing, and she'll be there every step of the way. Know that she's not far from you. So that's how I would deliver the message. And I know that's the intention from spirit. So the more that I've worked with the spirit and messages that come through, I know the reasons why they're bringing my awareness to something. I know their intentions as to why they would tell me about something like that. And that's how I've learned to kind of work with spirit in that way, is to just help people know, one, that your people are with you, they love you, that that if there's any healing or any things that we can help remove together and it relates to energy, like grief, fear, phobias, anxiety, stresses, worries, I wish I could have, should have, that we remove those, because spirit on the other side doesn't look down and go, oh, look at my daughter. She's suffering. She's struggling. Do you think that your mom really feels that way in spirit? No. Dear daughter, I love you unconditionally. Don't carry this fear in your life. You no longer need this. You should surrender this and release this. And together with the messages that come through, we help let those things go. So when they leave, they have this renewed connection with their people that they love, but also that they know that they don't need to carry this energy they've been carrying. Because sometimes what you have is what I say is what is not at ease of life, could and potentially become disease. So energies, there's healings that take place in the sense, maybe before everybody even knows that it doesn't, energies that we carry in our spirit body, our aura, our chakras, in different places, could become a disease if we carry it there for long enough. And when you make a connection through spirit and they help kind of you surrender or release these things, there's a healing that does take place in the sense of it's an energetic spiritual healing, but it's like the surrender of like the energies you've been carrying around since that person's left.
Wow. It's funny because how you talked about the mind reading thing, because every single time I was going to ask you a question, you started saying, like every little thing, I was like, okay, I'm going to talk about the class. I want to ask him about his class. Boom, you started talking about the class. I want to ask him about what clairaud, like which ones do you have, the clairaud, and then you started saying clairaud, clairsentient, clair this, clair that. So I was like, all right. So it's funny.
We're connected. Whether we're doing this over Zoom and like, where do you live exactly?
Close to Los Angeles in California, right? Like 30 minutes from Los Angeles.
Right. We're like a long ways away from each other. You're on the west coast of the USA. I'm on the east coast of Canada. We're pretty far apart. Yeah. But you know what? We're still connected.
Absolutely.
There's no separation between you or I in our thoughts, our connections, but also with the people in spirit. Spirit world is all around us. There's no place that spirit isn't. It's there everywhere all the time. And we're still spirit contained within it all. We just think we're separate. It's just a belief that we have that we're separate. And if you can shift your beliefs and you can shift the way you interact with that energy that surrounds us, it will literally change your life. You'll become an intensely powerful co-creator of your life, as opposed to thinking that you're a victim of life that has been given to you. You become this person that can shift, things for a different way in a better perspective. You become in alignment with the true essence of who you are, and the right people come, the right stories, the right sign. You just start realizing that, everything around you is connected to you. And I think it's amazing. It's amazing when things like that happen.
No, absolutely. And I wanted to wait till after, because I didn't want to interrupt any
Sure.
of your story, because I'm sure my guests have already heard me say parts of my story throughout different.
Well, share something about you that you would like me to know. It's not, I'd love to hear something from you, because obviously you have wisdom as well, and I would love to, if I can learn something from your wisdom, then I'd really appreciate that.
Okay, absolutely. So no, and thank you for that. Thank you for everything, really. So, I've experienced just about everything, right? The whole things, like everything, since I was young as well. And one of my first things was premonitions, right? I think I could date it to when I was 5 years old, and I was trying to tell my family, hey, we already did this. And they were kind of brushing it off like, yeah, okay, like mocking me, like, okay, what happens next? And all this and that. And I was like, what? Confused, right? So I think it kind of stayed dormant for a long time. So I'm just going to fast forward to, it's crazy. About my mid-20s, I started really getting it heavy in dreams in a relationship. She was able to validate that, right? Like, I remember once it was so funny because I went to a mechanic and she calls me early in the morning and I was upset, and she heard it in my voice right away. She's all, why are you upset? And that was the first time they did that. In the dream, I saw a first and last name. So I asked her, who's so-and-so? It was a guy, right? I saw, and she's like, oh. he just emailed me. I haven't responded. I haven't talked to him in a year. And I was like, you see, that's like, how could I possibly know that, right? So, but I actually did want to ask you about that. Because I recently, it's just been like the last 2 months that I actually started asking. I met like a group, a community, and no one had really ever asked me on the spot to try to channel anything. Like, so my whole life it had just came in dreams, right? Like that. Like I'll dream things. Like once it was funny, I had a friend that I was like, hey, I text them too. And I was like, hey, did anyone steal your identity? And they're like, why? And I was like, I don't know. Like I dreamed it. And they're like, you and your dreams. And then the next day they messaged me, I just got a message that someone stole my identity. It's like, oh wow. Yeah. So, but see, I never had asked. It always came to me in dreams mostly, right? So just within the last I started actually asking, right? So I always kind of held on to that like, because I know people feel, so I was gonna ask you what kind of experiences you've had where people felt, but you already mentioned one, see, like with the Charlie incident, how.
Yeah.
So have you had a lot of those where people feel like, oh, don't be invasive with me or things like that? Like,
Usually everyone that I meet wants me to read them.
oh, okay. Okay.
There's not too many people that are resistant. I'll tell you a little story that happened recently, actually, and it's sad, and it's not something I want to be right about, but everybody has a purpose, right? But I was filming season 5 of Spirit Talker, and my director, Pepper Bomswan, who is a well-known director in Canada, Indigenous lady, and does lots of things. She could be a bit needy, let's say, in relation to saying, Shawn, read me, Shawn, read me, Shawn, read me. She's always like sitting down, like, give me something. And I'm like, it drives me freaking crazy, to tell you the truth. So anyway, I decided, she was sitting there, so I saw something, and I said, well, do you know, they're telling me that somebody's going to be making their journey home very soon, or they've made their journey home, or are going to be making it home soon. And I said, you know so-and-so? And I told her a name. She goes, yeah, but he's very much alive. I'm like, well, maybe you should check on him. And then 2 days later, she comes in, she's sitting down, she's crying. She goes, Shawn, I just found out that he passed away. And I said, I'm sorry. I mean, why I would get something like that, even though it's negative, is that, we all have a time to be here. And not even with suicide, sometimes, it's an exit point. And not everybody's meant to leave in the same way. I mean, it could be cancer, could be heart disease, could be old age, could be, a car accident, it could be suicide. I mean, we all have a journey. And, who are we to judge a person's journey in the way that they go home, whether it's by choice or non-choice? And for me to see that, Spirit had to know that his time was coming, because they wouldn't have told me if it wasn't meant to be, if it wasn't part of the plan. I don't think there's anything she could have done to change it, because I think she disbelieved me when I even told her anyway. But it turns out it was right, which is something maybe that she didn't believe at the time, but it came to be, unfortunately.
Wow. So that ended up being a suicide then?
It was, I think. Well, I don't know if it was intentional, because in a lot of Indigenous communities, sometimes people struggle with drugs and alcohol. And he'd been taking different drugs, and I don't think he had an alcohol addiction, but I think he, different medications that he was taking. It could have been prescription and non-prescription mixed, but I think probably could have had an reverse reaction to maybe taking too much of it. Maybe not thinking that he would die, but still probably like taking too much that would cause him to leave.
Well, I just got chills all over. So I'll tell you this story then about, and thank you so much for sharing that. Absolutely.
Sure.
Because that's what happened to me, basically. Like, my brother passed away in 2019 and he took his life, right? I had dreamed about it 9 months before. And it was the only time in my life I woke up with tears everywhere. Like my whole face was covered in tears. But in the dream, the only one I saw was my brother. So I thought because everyone's always waiting, oh, California's going to fall into the ocean. There's going to be this huge tsunami. So I thought like half the world had died, because I felt so much pain when I woke up. I was like, oh, man, it's coming. I was like, oh, wow, like, whatever, it's going to happen. But I didn't want to tell anybody. I didn't want to scare anyone. And then like 9 months later, when that happened with my brother, I was, I was hurt. I was mad at the spirit world. I was like, okay, you guys tell me all these other things. Why didn't you warn me about this? But then it was funny because I had messaged him like a week before. I was like, are you good? And he messaged me very short, like, yeah, you, like, he never did that. He was, I'm a Gemini like him. So I know you're a Gemini as well. I heard you mention. So he's very, he was 6'6", I'm 6'9". So, and you're 6'4", right?
No, I'm not. I'm like 5'9".
No. Your birthday.
Oh, it is June 4th. Yes,
yeah.
I thought you were talking about height.
Oh yeah, no.
You don't
no
look
way,
that
I'm not
tall on there.
Yeah, no. Absolutely not. No, yeah, the birthday. So he was June 6th, I was June 9th. Yeah. So we're always when we would communicate, there'd be a lot of conversation, right? It wasn't like, so he was answering me very short. So I just kind of let it go. I was like, all right, fine. So that's why even when it happened, I felt guilty. Like, was I supposed to push? Did you give me the warning and I didn't get the the message, right? So anyways, probably fast forward about a month after it happened, I was on Facebook because a lot, he was in the military for, in the Marines for 20 something years, right? So a lot of his friends that were just hearing about it were messaging me on Facebook. So I never really went on there, but I was on there. And then all of a sudden, one of my friends jumped out at me. And they told me to message my friend. And I was like, nah, this friend didn't even say my condolences. They didn't say nothing. So no, I'm not going to message this friend. And they're like, if you don't message him, you're going to regret it. And I'm like, fine. I'm like, hey, how's it going? And I just got it right away. I got the message that he didn't, and I went back and looked at the message. He didn't say nothing that will give me a hint that he was going through something. But I was like, hey, okay, I'm going to go to you. He lived like a mile away, 2 miles away. Okay, I'm going to go to you. I went, I took some sage, smudged the mob, this and that. And right when I'm there, I could tell he was going through something similar. Like, it looked like he was there in that place. And he told me, he looks at me and he tells me, I think God or an angel sent you here. And I was like, oh, like I felt good. I had helped my friend, but right away I look away and I'm like cursing in my head at like the spirit, God, but like, oh, now it's confirmed. See, you do send me to help other people, but you didn't send me to help my own brother. Like, how dare you, So I went into this dark place. And I think I had made up my mind. I was going to do it, right? Because it was like my brother had a family, had kids. I don't have kids, nothing. So I was like, why would you like take him, right? In that way, right? So then that night, I was visited by the star people, So I know, because even in your cards, like you have the star people card. Exactly. So I was so happy. Go ahead.
I'm going to just tell you a little story.
Absolutely.
I drew this card before we spoke today.
Oh, wow.
Because I knew it was going to come up.
Wow.
I had it sitting like right here, literally. And as soon as you said it, I picked it up. Because I knew that I had to talk about this today.
Wow.
So I'll let you finish your story. But this, spirit works in really cool ways. Because I was shuffling up cards when we first started. And then I stopped. And the very top card I picked up was this. And I left it sitting there. Wow. And I was waiting for you to bring it up.
That's amazing. And I almost didn't. I was like, you know what? I've already shared this story before. I was like, I'm not gonna. But I don't know. I guess when you mentioned right now the suicide thing, that opened the door for it. So I was like, all right, let me share this story. I felt like the chills. So I was like, okay. So, the star people visited me. They took me to where my brother was. They showed me that, it was all written. That this is we agreed on it. So it was like, how can okay, you showed me. And then they showed me physical proof. So it's funny because you had mentioned about, becoming an author and this. And I actually wrote my first book this year, but I wrote 3 books, like back to back to back. But the first one was the important one. The other ones were just my stories. The first one was about showing how they showed me and it transferred to this life. Like basically proof. Like, I know a lot of times you have to take people's word for it. So it was like they showed me proof to show people that, hey, this is real. Like it really, translated to the physical. So I don't think anyone reading it could be like in denial unless you just don't want to believe, then it's fine, So anyways, back to so they showed me proof that it was all written. And well, so first they appeared to me in our human bodies, I guess, so I wouldn't get freaked out. And then they appeared to me again And it was like how you said, like the love. It was like if I went through a portal in my spirit body, I appeared to where they were, and it was like we were in another dimension, but they appeared in their real form. There were these huge like star people, and my heart felt like it belonged with them. It took me about 2 months to shake off the energy because I wanted to go with them. I was like, okay, that's it. Like you're my family. You must be where I come from. I never felt, and it's sad to say because we love our families here, but the love was, I've never felt anything like it, right? And my heart just exploded. And then when they visited me again, they actually asked me if I wanted to go with them. And without skipping a beat, I was like, yes. And then they went, oh, like they didn't expect me to say yes. Like they thought, but then I knew that when I woke up and I came to that, I had said, okay, fine, I'll stick around again. Because that was during the pandemic. And I don't know, everyone was so divided. The world was just everyone. It wasn't even about the pandemic and what's happening. It was people. The people's hearts had turned like something. I just didn't feel. But anyways, back because I'll jump all over the place. So anyways, that was the whole thing, right? They showed me that me and my brother had agreed to it. Of course, it was hard. I couldn't really tell my family about that. And then the same, he started coming to me nonstop. Boom, boom, boom. He would visit me a lot. And then the same, my mom had that. Like, well, why hasn't he visited me? He hasn't visited me. And I knew in my head, I was like, I know she's just not ready for it. He finally, I think after like 3 years, he finally visited her, but at first, but yeah, it was all the star people. And then I had that connection with them after that. That was my first time seeing them. And then I've had a connection with them like ever since where, I've even seen them in the physical, not just in dreams. Like I woke up once and there was one in my room and I regret it to this day. Like I kind of just put the covers back up because it's like you waking up and there's someone just there, like staring at you. And I was like, and I went like that, and I regretted it after. But they've came to me like that. But go ahead, I'm very interested in what you have to say. So,
Well, I mean, we are the star people. We all are. This isn't our original home. I mean, this is just one home in a trillion billion stars out there. We've been living lifetimes for forever.
Mm.
And the fact that you showed up, as this person in this world at this time, you're meant to be here. You're meant to kind of be here at this time. But I mean, look back at the earth, like, I don't know, 100,000 years ago. How many people were here?
Mm.
How many people? Very, very little people. 100,000 years ago. Like, what are we at now? Over a trillion? Where do we all come from?
Yeah.
We are the star people.
Mm.
When we see, like, because you said you saw them as your family, they are your family.
Yeah, yeah.
You've lived lives with them before. You've been connected to them before. You were connected to the family that you have here now, and you have ancestors. In Indigenous culture, that's how we see them. And even like in the card deck that I have, Wisdom of the Elders, I talk about the Milky Way, the Spirit Road. Because when I spoke to elders in the past, they tell me about the lives that I've lived in all those stars, in different stars that you see within the Milky Way itself. And that's just within our galaxy. I don't know if we transcend lives within this galaxy itself. I don't know. Into the greater universe. I mean, I can't tell you that truth. But in Indigenous culture, we're taught that the Milky Way is where that we call the Spirit Road, and that our spirit makes a choice, or your soul family makes a choice whether or not you're going to continue the evolution of your spirit and soul within this world, or another out in the Milky Way itself in the Spirit Road. And so when you meet these people, because I feel like they're probably traveling within our own galaxy itself, the Milky Way, and I know there's many civilizations out there. I mean, it's very apparent and not too strange to think. I mean, here we are, just one little blue dot in the middle of everything. There's probably like thousands of other civilizations out there. Maybe some of them are advanced enough to visit, and I think obviously we're seeing them, and I've had experiences. I've had visitations. My mom has had some really profound visitations over the years. I remember one, actually my mom and uncles in Newfoundland have had such a cool visit. Like my mom woke up with my stepdad. He's passed away now, Larry, but she woke up, and when they have a cabin in the middle of nowhere in Newfoundland, you actually have to take a boat an hour, and it looks like the moon over there because there's no trees. It's very remote because it's cold during the winter. So, and the trees that do grow are very short. and it's mostly rock and looks like the moon
Oh wow.
in Newfoundland. So anyway, my mom has a cabin in this really remote little bay area, and they got up for dinner one night, and as they were sitting by the fire, boom, on the hill over the side of the way, there was a 50-foot disc that was hovering there,
Oh, wow.
about 30 feet above the hill, spinning around with red and green lights. And they watched it for hours. They watched it for hours. And eventually, my stepdad, Larry, who was very skeptical, said it's got to be the Russians. So there's no way that there's aliens.
Wow.
But that's the way he's very analytical, right? It's got to be the Russians. They got to have technology that we don't have. There's no way, because there's no noise, there's no, but the ship is hovering there. And so they go to bed because, apparently when there's aliens hanging out, you go to bed after like 5 hours. You just don't, you don't walk over there and say hi. So they went to bed, they woke up, it was gone.
Oh wow.
And so anyway, they went about their day. They talked about it all day. My mom, for whatever reason, doesn't have a camera. I mean, she has a flip phone still, for God's sakes, and only turns it on if she needs to make a call. Why don't you take a picture, Mom, for God's sakes? Even on the flip phone, awesome. And so anyway, they go about their day, and they get done supper, go out for fire, blink, it's back.
Oh wow.
Stayed there all night, and then they went to bed again, and the next day it was gone. But the same night, on the other side of the bay, where my other uncle lives, in a little tiny town called St. Bernard's, Newfoundland, he woke up to go to the bathroom, and there was a 50-foot disc floating in the bay. Not floating, hovering above the bay. And he sat there staring at it for probably, he said, about 15, 20 minutes, and he eventually had to go to the bathroom. And he actually said he saw people in there. He saw people, or humanoid people, walking around in the light.
Wow.
And so he went to the bathroom, he came back, and it was gone. And so I've seen lots of things. I've had a visitation where I woke up in my room and there was somebody standing by my bed. One of the little gray people, I guess.
Oh, wow.
It happened to be a female gray person because she was more feminine. She had, for whatever reason, she has longer eyelashes, and scared the bejeebus out of me. And as soon as I got startled, it was gone. It was like she just like vanished. It was just enough that I saw her for a moment, and she was actually almost, because I was like cuddled right up to my wife, like, snuggling her in bed, and it was almost like she was like admiring how much we loved each other.
Wow.
And she was just there observing how much we loved each other. And it maybe again, soul connection. Maybe she's an ancestor. Maybe we've lived lives together before. I don't know, but I know that we're connected to the star people, and I know that we have been star people before. This world, and all the people that are here. I mean, whether you've had many lifetimes within this world, I feel like you've probably had lifetimes in other worlds too. And after this life, and potentially, hopefully we'll continue here for some time. Because I know that we've come here to evolve and grow, and hopefully this, humanity will continue that way. That we'll start learning to walk a better road in life, and not so fixated on war and that there's a lot of hatred or any just any religion, or every religions is kind of like against each other. Like, we need to learn to be one, all relations.
Absolutely.
And hopefully we evolve here continually so that we can be the visitors of other planets and observe people that have maybe in their process of evolution. And I know we'll get there. It might take 1,000 years, it may take 2, if we survive, our humanity and our the way we kind of roll sometimes, which we should. I feel like we should. But it's not too strange to think that we have brothers and sisters visiting us from other places.
No, absolutely. And thank you for saying that you were startled as well, because I was always like, oh man, even though I've seen them before, the fact that, I got startled, I felt bad about it, right? Because in my experience, it was almost like a portal opened up, like halfway up, or like near the top of my room, like the room, right? Like it was up, and the same. It was a feminine, being, and like she was sticking her head out, just like looking at me. So that's why I was like, what? Like, you just see someone looking at you. But what happened after was, like, 3 months later, a friend texted me and she said, hey, I know you're the only person I could tell this that won't think I'm crazy. And I was like, yeah, of course. And then she's like, I woke up and there was this being by my bed, the same thing. And she said, okay, let me see if I could draw or something. And I guess she found some picture of someone else that had seen her. And she sent me that. I was like, oh, there was a few pictures. And the very last picture, I was like, that's exactly like the one that was in my room like 3 months ago. So I was like, oh, wow. So right there in that thing, it said like they were called Syrian star people, that those were like from the Syrian like star people. So I was like,
Oh, yeah.
wow.
Oh, well, I think we're all star people. I mean, if
Yeah.
you think about it, we are. I mean, in indigenous culture, right? All of our
Absolutely.
ceremonies start with the east, and the east facing the sun, and that connection to that sacred light, because we remember we are the light. We're actually the stars.
Mm.
Because when a star has gone supernova and exploded, and all the molecules and elements of the periodic table have gone out into space, from that star, that's what's created life in the physical form of worlds, planets, moons, people, insects, everything. I mean, we're not separate from that light, and that's why when we leave the physical, we return to the light, not necessarily the sun, but the light that exists in behind and within everything. And that's the spirit world. And there's form and places and people of all cultures and times, and not just past, present, and future. Because there is only now. And I think we're here to, in this point, experience this aspect of life. But there's a lot of stuff that that is there that I don't know, but I do know that it's a real place. I've seen it, I've experienced it, I've felt it, I hear it, I've recorded spirits. They're really with us. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, I have all kinds. You go to my YouTube channel, I've got like a 11-minute tape from like 2010 of different spirits that I have recorded in the past, of people saying different things to me. And I've even got one of my guide, I think, is on there talking about the light. Even it's like pretty cool, because I met this guy named Howard Carter, who was like an earthbound spirit. He hadn't moved on. And then my guide talked to him and said, she says, the light way, the light is. So she was given the direction to move towards the light, and he did. And I didn't do a whole lot. I just stood there just talking to him, but my guide helped. My guide Victoria, and because we have many guides, right, that work with us in different ways for different reasons. But Victoria is the one that helps me with all the spirit stuff, and I recorded her talking to him. So this is like a figment of my imagination. I can't record, unless I'm a schizophrenic ventriloquist. That's what I say.
Oh, wow.
And I know I'm not.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I definitely I wanted to ask you like about the difference between like the spirit guides, ancestors, even angels, because the only thing I am curious about, and if, of course, I don't want to be like invasive with your
No,
like
not at
gifts
all.
or anything like that. But I was gonna see if you could, because I have like, it was funny once I was in the mountains and there was a mountain lion, and I heard these two women talking, and I went to catch up to them like, okay, boom. And then there were no women, right? You could see down the mountain for over a mile and there was no women. Then I found an old tape where I was in an abandoned cemetery from like the 1800s. And in the tape, I say, oh, I just heard some women talking. So then I realized, oh, wait a second. Every time I'm in these places, I hear these women talking. Recently, as I've been trying to develop this more, I saw this woman in my head going by like on a canoe, and she was looking at me, and I was like, was that for me? Was that one of my ancestors, or was that for somebody else? Because I found that interesting. Like, she looked
Sounds
like
like one of your guides. It sounds like one of your guides that work with you. I'm sure some of the women that you're recording are your guides. Absolutely.
okay.
Yeah.
But if you right now,
They're not an ancestor as well, right?
Mm.
Because I believe the people that we choose, we've lived lives with before,
Okay.
but they may have an expertise, or especially in a certain area that they've worked through or learned through, whether it was in this world or another world itself, but they can bring to your life to help guide you as you're working through this currently, through this life experience. So when we choose our guides before we're born, you would choose them accordingly. And I think, it sounds like those two ladies are probably like some of your primary guides that are helping you, with your spirit and spirituality and growth and serving people.
Oh, okay. And so right now, there's no one coming through. Like if you stop and
You mean with one of your guides?
Yeah, like for me.
Um,
You don't have to like yeah at all, because I know it's not just like boom and it's there.
I do see a dark-haired, like indigenous lady to me, but she was very pretty, like very. I think she probably the one in the canoe that I would say that I see, but she
Mm.
seems like she's connected to indigenous people and culture.
Mm.
But I don't hear a name for her, so I can't really name her.
Oh, and she's just here, like she's just
I do see her, but I can't hear her.
okay.
But you must know who she is because she's your guide.
Oh wow. No, I mean I really don't. No, I don't. Like not in this lifetime, I guess.
No, not in this lifetime. No,
Okay.
that's what I'm saying. She wouldn't be from this lifetime. Sam, Victoria, my guides aren't from this lifetime either.
Mm.
These are people that I've lived other lives with before, but they're helping me work through this life in specific ways. Sam is like guides me through life, and Victoria helps me with my spirit as much. And
Mm.
she's the one I always record. I never record Sam. I
Oh,
always record Victoria all the time. Actually, that's not true. I did, because I have another guide that I learned about named Eliza or Lisa, and I didn't even know about her. I dreamt of her, like I saw her in her dream. She had visited me. She was kind of a heavier set dark lady with like kind of shoulder length hair, but I didn't know who she was. And then I was doing a thing with a bunch of people recording, because I recorded, like I always record my sessions when I'm doing things. And I heard my guides talking to each other.
mm.
And they were talking to Eliza. They like
Oh
Eliza.
wow.
And the other person said Eliza. And I was like, they both pronounced her name a little bit differently, but they
Wow.
were talking to this other lady. And that's when I learned who this other lady was. Even though I dreamt of her, I'd seen her, but I didn't know her name until I actually recorded my guides talking to her. And then I heard them like saying her name, and I was able to get that.
Mm. Wow, that's amazing. Um, I wanted to mention one little thing, and because like when you were talking about how having a burn off or being clear minded to receive the messages, like I realized that because even in ceremony, sometimes I wouldn't really get messages, but I'll go hiking up a mountain and boom, everything just comes in, boom, 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 as I'm burning off this energy. And so even, this earlier this year, and I think, see, it hit me hard, but I realized it happened for a reason because, like I said, I wrote the books, did all that. I started getting the sciatic nerve pain. And at first, when it happened, it was so excruciating. It was like one of those things where you just don't want to wake up anymore. You're like, it shot up all the whole back. And so I was just frustrated. And one day, they told me to go up to the mountain. I was like, how am I going to go to the mountain if I could barely walk? And they're like, go to the mountain. I'm like, fine. So I go to the mountain and I climb up the mountain and I make it to the top and I don't feel any pain by the time I'm at the top of the mountain. I'm like, wow, this is crazy. And then so as I start hiking down the mountain, this native man appears to me, right? And he has like this pain. He has no shirt on. The feathers are like not like the Hollywood feather, they're like kind of
Yeah.
to the side. Yeah, he had a staff. And instantly when I see him, I just break down in tears. My heart explodes. Like I feel this vibrating, like where they say your third eye is. Because at first I was trying to, I'm hallucinating. But then it was like this was vibrating and the sun was way back there. So it wasn't like the heat from the sun or nothing. After that, he disappears and I can't stop crying for like over 5 minutes, just boom, boom, boom. So then I ended up interviewing someone that their specialty is angels. So when I'm telling them, they're like I mentioned this to them for some reason. It just comes to I mention it, and then they go like that, and they have a tattoo of this angel, Archangel Saint Raphael, who is the medicine, like the medicine. They call him the medicine of God or the medicine man of God, or like that. And so I was like, "What? You think it was him?" She's like, "I know it was him, but how do you feel?" I was like, "No, it makes sense. It makes sense. He has a staff as well and everything." I was like, "But why did he appear to me as a native man then?" And she's like, well, because that's who you felt comfortable with. And so when I told other people, they'll be like, are you sure it was him? Like, why was he a native man? But I'm like, no, I know now it was him. And even that, see, when I've seen spirits, I never had that where I broke down crying. There was this like pureness, some kind of like this was a sacred being or something where I just, I was looking around, are there any other hikers? Because I couldn't stop crying for like 5 minutes, but it was love. It wasn't like, oh, like something else. It was love. So I don't know what my question was. I know I wanted to ask, like, why? I guess they do take on whatever form they want. Then, right? You've experienced
They
that.
can. I mean, I think I've had an experience with Gabriel.
Oh, wow.
He's not one of my guides, but he's an angel that watches over me. There is angels.
Mhm.
I've even have a recording of my guide telling me to summons angels, for God's sakes.
Oh, wow.
So I have a voice where she goes, summons angels. And I'm like, okay, okay, apparently I should be summoning angels sometimes.
Wow.
And because maybe they have a distinct role, right, in your life to help you in specific ways, right? So anyway, I did have a dream of Gabriel, but also I've heard different things and different stories from people that have had experienced Gabriel. Now,
Mhm.
Gabriel could appear to some people as a woman and some
Oh.
people as a man in different forms. And the way I look at it is, and from my understanding, that there's a phyla of Gabriel, a phyla of Michael, there's a phyla. So there's like many different forms that they don't have to, there's like, I don't want to call them an army, but I feel like they're a group that have purposes. Angels have purposes. And despite how they may look this way or that way or whatever, I feel like they have roles that they fulfill their purpose from spirit by helping us in life in different ways. So, and that's why angels could appear differently to different people. But I feel like they have distinct and different roles depending on their phyla. So, like Raphael, you were saying, is like the healer. You know, does the healing work on things. Like Gabriel is the messenger. You
Oh.
know, he's the one who would bring or give a message in relation to something. And when he came to me, it was the same way. I didn't even know he was Gabriel. I had to go to a different elder and ask who the hell this guy was, because I didn't know who he was.
Wow.
Because I had all this stuff happening. And anyway, I had this dream. And then this guy, because I had this dream where I was fighting this thing. It was really not good. And it was like, anyway, I defeated it in my dream. Could be a fear or something it could be the negative energy that was coming in my life at that time. I don't know. But anyway, I had this dream and this guy walks up. He's got curly, dark black hair and piercing blue eyes. He's wearing a long white robe. And the first thing he says to me is, Shawn, do not fear me. I'm like, I'm not going to fear you. I'm like, why would I fear you? He goes, Shawn, I come to you with a message, but you must not fear me. I said, I do not fear you. I said, so what is your message? He says, you're going to be going through a very difficult time soon. And I want you to know I'm going to be with you and I have your back. I'm going to be here for you. I'm going to help you through this. And I said, okay. I said, who are you? Are you a guardian angel? Like, are you a guide? He goes, I'm not a guide. He says, I'm like a guide, but I'm not. And that's all he would tell me. And he left. And I woke up and I don't know. And actually, I thought I heard him say his name was Gilbert.
Oh, wow.
I said, Gilbert, what a weird name is that? Because I asked him, like, who are you? And I thought he said Gilbert. So I woke up thinking there's some guy named Gilbert that was giving me a message and said not to fear him. So I met with an elder, because I met with an elder that I had to say, listen, this is the weirdest dream ever. I met with this guy. He's kind of skinny, wearing a long white robe, curly dark black hair with piercing blue eyes. And I told him, and I said, what did he say to you? The elder said, he said, the first thing he said to me is, Shawn, do not fear me. I come to you with a message, but you must not fear me. He goes, and he what did you say his name was? I said, I think he said his name was Gilbert. He says, that's not Gilbert. He says, that's Gabriel. And all accounts of Gabriel visiting anyone, the first thing he says is, do not fear me. I come to you with a message.
Wow.
Because even when he met with Mary in the Bible, when she was coming to meet him about the birth of Jesus, she said, he came to give her a message. She says, Mary, do not fear me. I come to you with a message. He said it was freaking Gabriel.
Wow.
And I'm like, how the hell did I not know this?
It's amazing.
And then that was my first experience with an angel. But I've heard other people have had experiences with Gabriel as well. But Gabriel's look differently for different people. And some people tell me that Gabriel to them was a lady or a woman. Although I think angels are androgynous. I don't feel like they have any sex organs per se, but they may appear masculine or feminine, or may appear different in different ways. But the essence of who they are as the phyla or their purpose, is the same. So they would come to one person. There's not one angel. There's a group of angels that are called Gabriel.
Oh.
And they all have a purpose they fulfill the same purpose, but there's so many people within the world, that, they may appear to one person as this way and another person a different way. But it doesn't mean they're not the same phyla, or they don't have the same purpose in life to serve or help you in a specific way. So I feel that with Michael too, Michael the archangel, and I feel that with Raphael, and I know there's other angels, but I've never met them, so I can't really speak of them. But I know of, like, predominantly there is angels, and I know that they exist because I've met one, but also my guide has spoken to me, and I have a recording of that speaking to me, saying to summons them. So I feel like if I needed a particular help in a specific way, based on the roles or responsibility a certain file of angels would have, like the file of Gabriel, the file of Michael, I would then call upon a specific file, as opposed to thinking just I have to call on one being. That I'm asking the group of Michael to help me. And to help me in this way, because I'm facing a battle that I need protection from, and I need your divine protection to kind of battle the darkness that I may be going through currently at this time. And or as a messenger, Gabriel, as he came to me with a message of things that he was going to be helping me through stuff, and I did. I went through a really difficult time right after that. I ended up getting divorced, and it was just really bad, and it wasn't a good experience at all. It was really bad. I lost everything.
Oh, wow.
But I've rebuilt my life since then. And I mean, like, and that what I tell people is that when things are going bad, sometimes they're going right. You just don't know it. But it's nice to know that you have people helping you through the bad times.
Absolutely.
It's because you need support. And I needed support because I was going through a really tough time. And I got through it, and I survived it. I'm married to a beautiful lady now, Michelle. We've been together for 7.5 years, and I've never been happier in my life, and I've rebuilt a whole new life, and it's amazing, and I'm so grateful. And I wouldn't be here if I was in the old place that I was in, because I wasn't happy there anyway. So things had to shift or change, whether I liked it or not. Things had to go bad to get me to where I'm supposed to be.
Absolutely. No, that makes perfect sense. Yeah. Right away when you were saying that, I thought of like the tower, like in the cards, like the tower moment, kind of where everything falls apart, but it's for a good reason, right? Like everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything, there's nothing that isn't shifting or changing. Every moment. I mean, there's no moment that stays the same. It's everything always is in the process of becoming something new. And that's what I tell people when they think, well, when creation started. I mean, I say it this: when did creation stop? It has never stopped. It's happening in this moment. It's going to happen in the next moment. And it's going to continue to happen for every moment for eternity. There's never a point. And creation is also the destruction, because from the destruction something comes new. And it's part of the cycle of things. Even the human body, the human form, it's all cyclical and circle. Everything in the universe moves, is spherical and moves in circular forms. Just like life, we come from spirit, we move through life. There's different seasons of life. In Indigenous culture, we have the 4 seasons, spring, summer, fall, and winter. And then and there's different cycles from youth to from infancy to youth to adult to elder, and then you return home. There's the seasons change from fall, winter, spring, summer. I mean, everything is cycle. It's circular and doesn't change. It just becomes something new all the time.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much for sharing that. And so, I wanted to ask you, because I definitely want to take your class, right? Like
Spirit Talker Tribe. Yeah. It starts registration is every September 7th to 30th.
Okay.
And then it goes all year. So I have a whole year.
Okay.
It's a full year course, and I teach it all year, but I only usually have registration between September 7th and 30th. But and every year I have people from all over the world who sign up and register and join. And I think I had 700 and maybe about 750 people this year from different places all over the world. And I have a year 1, year 2, and I also have a membership after people have done year 2, because people still want to stay in the course even when they're done. They're like, this is their tribe, their family. And and I teach about what I know, and I teach different modules and classes, and I have weekly Facebook Lives with my students, and I'm always growing, and they're growing and changing too. So as I go through life and experience new things, I have different things that I learned that I share with people and teach people. And it's about them, not about me. It's about them learning about their connection, about them stepping into their spirit and knowing how they can be connected in a way that they engage with spirit, how to listen, learn, to receive messages, and hopefully help people, whether it's a friend or family member, or even a bigger way if they choose. And I do have people that are professional mediums that have gone through my course and out there and doing it, but most people are just everyday people that just want to learn how and understand how to greater connection with spirit themselves, and I kind of help people with that. And it's probably my greatest joy. It's what I find I love the most, is because I get to help people like grow in that way, and I think that's amazing.
Oh, absolutely. So it is interactive then, or it's mostly just the
No, it is
classes?
interactive.
Okay.
I do have modules, right, that come out once a month for the year one. I have 12 modules that come out, and then there's weekly Facebook Lives that I have where I engage people who are in the course. And if anybody has any questions in regards to what I'm talking about for the month, then they can ask. They can submit an email and I'll answer it in the live, or they can submit it during the live and I'll answer it there too. And I think it's really, really, really good platform and format to kind of help people learn and grow.
Yeah, absolutely. But so you teach them together, the year one and year two? They're basically
No, I have a year one and I have year two class. So like year one has their own Facebook Lives. Year two has their own Facebook Lives, and the membership has their own lives as well.
Oh, wow.
But what happens is the members can be part of the year one and year two, and the year two can be part of the year one and year two. So they can, even though they've gone through year one, they can still partake in the year one teachings, because again, like I said, every year I learn different things, I approach things a little bit differently, and I teach it a little bit differently. And so I have a lot of people. I had some people, there's probably like a core group of members that I've had for like 6 years. And there's about 200 of those people they're still in the course, and they're just, this is their family, this is their connection. It helps them, helps them connect to each other, because there's this family connection to it, like that they get to know each other and support each other, because everybody's out doing their own things in life. But there's also this like just spiritual connection that keeps us all together in a sense, to help people learn and grow, and everybody's always learning and growing still.
Absolutely.
I mean, anybody can leave anytime they want. Nobody, especially in the membership, they can leave anytime. And I have people leave and off and on here and there. I mean, after they've been in it 6 years, I think probably they don't tune in as much anymore, so they probably realize maybe they don't need me anymore, which is an amazing gift, because if you can walk away with understanding what I've taught, and then feel like you don't need me, that you can step into your life and feel that connection without me supporting that, I think that's amazing. I mean, if I get people there, that's like awesome.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I agree 100%. Yeah, so I look forward to, I wish I could join in now, but I guess I have to wait till September of next year, huh?
Yeah, you're gonna have to wait till next year. It closes because like September 7th to 30th is like the launch, and then because right now I'm in module 3, like in the course, and I mean there's a live that I teach every week in regards to that. So unless you get in and you catch all up or something, you could probably do that.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay.
Then I know if you want to.
yeah. I'll message you then, and or you could tell me what the process is. Or
Sure.
I mean, definitely. I mean, I'm interested, so go ahead and just send me what the details will be for joining.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, sounds great. So, is there anything else you want to talk about before we close? I mean, I could keep talking to you, but I want to respect.
Oh no, I'm gonna have to go now. But I
so.
appreciate your time and appreciate your questions and your zest and energy to helping people learn and grow too, and appreciate your platform to helping like share some of these stories so other people can learn and grow within their own lives wherever they are, right? I would just say, if you're interested in some of the things I teach about, because a lot of the things I teach about is in this book.
Oh, okay.
Spirit Talker, which is published by Hay House Publishing. And obviously the deck that you talked about with the Star People, which is the Oracle card deck, Wisdom of the Elders, also published by Hay House Publishing. A lot of good stuff there. So if you're thinking about learning and growing, this might be a good start for you to kind of like embrace that, and then, you know, see where it goes from there. And if
Absolutely.
you know, if you're thinking about the course, then maybe think about joining next year.
No, and just real quick, it was funny because I barely started practicing. I've only done maybe what, like 6, 7 readings for people, and so I did one for someone, and I was like, let me try out this deck, right? It's new, and then so the card that jumped out was like, I think it says summer, and it's these people, a man and a woman on a canoe, and then that person's like, oh my god, I was just looking. Like, we're planning, me and my boyfriend, to go on a kayaking and this and that, and they're like, look it, and they showed me, and I was like, oh wow. So it was just crazy that I was like, we had already finished the reading, but I was like, let me pull this extra one, and it was from that deck. So it's funny that I bring that up to say, like, the deck that definitely has things you wouldn't find on other decks, right? So I love it. I
Absolutely.
personally love the imagery in it and everything, the
Well,
messages.
the person, like, even like the people that helped me with this deck, like I wrote the deck and all the teachings. I mean, there's a lot of indigenous teachings within the deck in relation to not like ceremony, but teachings. And Tracy Metallic, who is also a Mi'kmaq artist, she has done because all these cards are painted now. And then I had a graphic artist named Aaron Gugu, who is also Mi'kmaq. So this deck, I mean, is completely done, inspired, written, and created in the visual art by Indigenous people. And that we as Indigenous people, have a lot of wisdom. And in relation to teachings that have been given to us from our elders and different things. And I think it was time to like share something like this. And that's what inspired me to do it. There's a funny story about the deck, actually. I'll tell it really quickly.
Okay, yeah.
When I started Spirit Talk of the TV show, I did the pilot episode, and I went to this place called Listigwish, Quebec. And I did this live event reading, and I read a lady in the audience who was named Tracy Metallic. And then I tuned into the fact that she was an artist and she did some art. So anyway, we did a private one-on-one session later, which they filmed, and she showed me some of her art. And I said, Tracy, I gotta, one day I'm thinking about, like, I'd like to do an Oracle card deck. Would you be interested in doing the art if that ever finds a way to manifest itself in my life? And excuse me. And so anyway, this, like a year ago, I get a call from Hay House, and they said, well, Shawn, we'd like to publish a book by you. And because I self-published, right, first. And they said, but would you be interested in doing an Oracle card deck too? I'm like, oh, hell yeah. And I said, I know just the person. So I gave her a call and I said, Tracy, remember that conversation we had like 5 years ago? And I said, if it ever worked out, well, guess what? It's working out.
Wow.
Would you be interested in doing the art? And she said, I absolutely would love to do the art deck. And another little side note about Tracy, that, she actually just got invited to the Golden Globes.
Oh, wow.
And her art is being featured as gifts that is being given out to people that are coming to the Golden Globes this year, and she'll be attending. And so I think that's amazing. It's amazing.
It is. Wow. That's amazing. Yeah. Is there a different Golden Globes in Canada than here, or it's the same?
Oh, it's down there in the
Oh,
US.
okay. Wow.
She's going down there. Yeah. Because I think, and I'm not sure, there's a new movie out called Flowers of the Blood Moon or something like this.
Yeah.
And it's very Indigenous orientated. And I think that's because it's a big thing. It's going to be at the Oscars and things this year, in the Golden Globes and all that. I feel like that maybe they wanted to feature some Indigenous art to kind of, go along with that. I mean, and she was actually, it's funny because Tracy talked to the lead actress from that movie.
Oh, wow.
And was telling me about my cards. So I think it's just kind of cool that, how everything connects together. But yeah. How did you find my deck, by the way? Like, how did it come to you? Like,
I guess since I was starting to, since I had gotten in that community, see, it was crazy. Like, that's how it happened. I ended up interviewing someone, and we stayed talking after I hit stop, and they're like, I told them, yeah, I get like my visions and dreams, but I've never really tried it. And he's all, oh, you want to try it? I'm like, okay. And he's over there like in Europe, France, I believe, right? So he's like, all right, let's try it. And then so he's all, tell me what you see. And I told him something, and then he lifts up a piece of paper, and everything I said was like on the paper. So I was like, I even felt, are you playing with me right now? Like, you're messing with me, right? So then he invited me, and then so I was like, you know what? Let me try. I had bought a deck, like a few decks a while back, and I never used them. So I was like, I'm gonna go buy another deck. And then I saw your deck, and and it's not to be like I just wanted, like, I had seen other native decks, but when I looked up, like, I don't know, they weren't by native people, and so I know that's not, maybe I shouldn't, obviously that's my.
No. I think you just want it to be like kind of like the energy and connection to, if it's indigenous culture, you want it to become from an indigenous person, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I understand that. I mean, I do that too. I mean, I don't buy a dream catcher from a Chinese made store. I mean, nothing against people who are from China. They make amazing, great things sometimes. But,
Absolutely.
when it comes to things that are indigenous related, I wanted to make sure that it's connected to an indigenous person. So I'll go to a store that it's handcrafted by an indigenous person to buy that dream catcher, or buy my medicine from someone who is indigenous, as opposed to buying it somewhere else to gift to other people, right? But I know what you're saying, and there's nothing wrong with saying that at all. It's just that you want to support indigenous people, and I mean, whether you're Black or Asian or whatever, I mean, you might want to support your own culture too, right? It's just, we're all one, but there's nothing wrong with supporting the people that you have like roots with.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm gonna tell you one. So exactly, I felt like I was led to the deck, and so I happened to read it. I was like, oh, let me look it up. But I feel like it happens like that sometimes. A funny story. Once I went to over there, New Mexico, right? And I went. I think it's called the Colorado River. I don't know if you're familiar with that area, New Mexico, all this,
Well,
But they had a bunch of like I guess it's a tourist place because it's so high, this bridge, and there's that river that's one of the big rivers here in the US. But they had all these like little indigenous stands, right? Like, just little tables set up right there in the middle of nowhere, right? By the thing. So there's this man, and he's trying to sell me. He said these rocks, native man, and he said they were like rocks that came from the earth, but you could tell they were like fake, right? Or something like that. But I wanted to be supportive, so I was like, all right. And he was like, oh yeah, they're $40 or something like that. So I was like, all right, fine. And then out of nowhere, this wind comes and flips his table over, and all his stuff goes flying, and it didn't touch anybody else's table. And there's an elder like literally like a foot away from him with his table, and he looks at me like with this little smile, and he goes, boy, that wind came right for him, didn't it? And I was like, oh wow. So they didn't even like that. They were like, hey, you're not gonna sell him this stuff, And I felt bad. And I think I bought like what is it called? Like, he had some Palo Santo. I just bought that because I felt bad. I helped him pick up all his stuff, but I was like, oh wow, like, So it's funny. It's like sometimes you're guided towards things. So I don't know why that story popped in my head, but just to say, I felt like I was guided towards your deck.
Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate that, and I'm grateful. I don't believe there's any accidents, and I, I'm happy that Spirit had found a way to bring the deck into your life, and for us to connect. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Yes. So I'll put all your information. If you have any other links you want me to share, just email them to me, and also just send me the information for the class and all that. And
sure.
And
they can just go to my website, shawn-leonard.com. Book,
okay.
card, class, all the information is there.
Okay, perfect. Okay, Shawn, thank you so much. It was an honor. Really, I'm really grateful that I was led to the deck, and here we are. So yeah, and thank you so much for everything you do and everyone you help. So I'm sure they're grateful as well. Just like
thank you as well. Thank you for everything that you do, and you're serving people as well. And obviously you're connected to a good source, and I feel like that you're aware of that connection. I think that's a great gift, and that you're helping enlighten people to step further into their journey. So I appreciate you, and thank you. And we have a word in Mi'kmaq, which I'm sure in your own culture you have a word. We say upnamotus, which means upnamotus, which means I'll see you again.
Okay, upnamotus. I hope I said it right.
You did.
Okay.
Upnamotus.
Okay, upnamotus. Perfect. Okay. Then I'll see you again.
We'll see you again.
Thank you.
Okay, you have a great day.
Life may move fast or it may move slow. I met a silly man who said he'd make it slow. We look up out towards space or even at the sky. One that gets away but never look inside. Breathe in, breathe out. Life is a maze but we'll figure this out. I mean, human beings, I ain't got no doubt.
Yeah, sometimes you're just feeling it, you know what I'm saying? You're just feeling it. And I want to feel this way forever.